You only fail when you stop trying. You cannot change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust your sails to reach your destination. Take the helm, Captain. Rock stars, it's that time again. We're here with episode 32 of Stuck on Sawdust. In today's episode, we're going big, and I'm going to show you how to take this coat rack to the next level, literally. So don't go anywhere, because we're about to make some serious sawdust. So meet me at the table saw. There are some woodworkers out there who just straight up discriminate against using pine. Me, however, I don't discriminate. I elevate. You are such a dork. So for this coat rack, we're implementing this piece of pine and this beautiful Clara walnut into this coat rack. So first, we need to get our stock cut down to a workable size, get everything milled up and square, and cut to dimensions. So let's head over to the miter box. So my overall height for the coat rack is going to be at 12 3/4, but for now I'm just going to cut my stock to 13 inches. Before I mill my walnut, I need to go ahead and take my 2x4 pine and get rid of the roundover on the edge of one side and get it joined and planed to have a 90, and then we're going to rip it down to size, and then that will determine the width of our walnut. So let's head over to the joiner real quick and we'll get these shaped up.
Got it!
Now here I just want to take the roundover off of the opposite side of the 2x4. So I'll just rip them down real quick. Sorry about the shaky camera. Now I just need to mark for center, which winds up being 1 5/8 wide. Now we're just going to rip each of our pieces at 1 5/8. Over here at the joiner, we're just going to clean up our face and one side of our walnut pieces. That way we can get them cut down for our coat rack. Let's head to the planer. Alright, now that we got our Walmart shaped up, well, now that we have our walnut shaped up, we're going to take a piece of our pine and just set it right in between the fence and our saw blade and get our walnut pieces cut to that width. And I need 6 of them all together. Now that that's all milled down, we need to take the walnut and get it cut down to its final length, and that is going to be at 6 inches for each piece. So we're going to have 12 pieces at 6 inches. So meet me at the miter box. Here, we're just squaring up one end of each piece of walnut. So now I'm just going to mark my piece at 6 inches. I'm going to line up my blade with my mark and then set a stop block right here to go ahead and batch these cuts out. Make sure to let that blade stop all the way before releasing your saw. Now we're going to go ahead and cut a 45-degree miter from the very edge of each piece so we can have it bottom out on our backer. I'll demonstrate that in a few minutes. But now let's go ahead and get all these cut. And we've got a stop block set up once again to make all these cuts. Here, we're just going to fit everything into place, keeping in mind the grain pattern for the best look. Wow, this is looking good already, guys. So, what we're going to do next is take our walnut pieces and our pine pieces over to our drill press. And we're just going to drill a hole right at our short point here, pulling in 1/4 inch. And pulling up from the bottom 1 5/8 inches. So I'll meet y'all at the drill press. We'll get a jig set up to batch these holes out. But before we do that, we're going to take and mark our pieces. That way we don't get them mixed up at the drill press. You don't have to do this, but it just helps me keep everything in order and keep everything in the right direction. So it doesn't hurt doing it. For our dowels, we're using a 3/16 inch brass rod. So our bit is a 3/16 bit. Now what you want to do is get a clamp. And for the top coat racks, you're going to want to clamp the top flush to each other with the 2x4 and the piece of walnut. And then make sure you're flush against the front here. And then we'll drill these with our hand drill. And this ensures that you go in exactly where you need it and nice and level. And we'll do this with each of our 2x4s. And make sure to mark this one, because this is the left end. So we'll mark this one as number 1 T for top. So we know that one goes first. That way we get the identical holes. And then we'll mark this one for number 2 T, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. And we can just move these other walnut pieces out of our way. So here's number 1. So now we'll take our first piece of pine, which is labeled number 1, and clamp it to this side and get this hole drilled out. And then we'll grab number 2 and clamp it to this side of the first piece of pine. And just go all the way down the coat rack in order, just like this. And I'll meet you back here in just a second. Last one. All right, now it's time for the fun part. So make sure you get some paste wax. I don't think they sell Johnson's paste wax anymore. And if they do, it is extremely outrageously expensive. But any kind of paste wax will do. These holes are going to be pretty damn tight. So you just want to take a little steel wool pad and just wipe a little bit on each rod. Doesn't take much. Now, we're starting off with our 12-inch rod, and we're going to start at our right side top, And I did not go all the way through with these holes. However, I did go all the way through on these. So we'll go ahead and let this 12-inch rod bottom out right inside of this first hole. And you may need a mallet, but take it easy on this brass rod because it'll bend really easily and you don't want that to happen. Just give it a couple love taps until you feel it stop. And then just take your number 6 and it'll slide right on there. Whee! Then we'll take a rod for our bottom and slide it right in there and give it a couple love taps. Tap it until you feel it bottom out. And there's our first 2 racks. And we'll just work our way right on down. And it won't hurt to take your drill and just make sure you're clear of any debris inside your hole. And give it a little waller. Alright, and this is starting to look like this, guys. Come on now, how cool is that? Now, for the final rod, we'll cut them right about a 1/2 inch from the edge here. So that is going to wind up being about somewhere around 2.5 inches. All right, so we'll knock this in here. There we go, guys. That is awesome. And you should be left with something like this. All right, now for the backer, I've got this piece of hickory left over that I'm going to use. It is 1 3/4 inches thick, and I'm going to cut them down to 1-inch strips. And they're going to be installed one at the bottom and then one right under this short point of the top rack. And I'll show you where that is in just a second. But first, let's go ahead and get our backers ripped down. We're going to rip 2 of them at 1 inch. Jeez. Alright. We're going to take our clamp the bottom nice and snug, not too tight, and we'll clamp the top as well. So we're going to take our pieces, and we squared up one end of our backer already, and we'll just hold it out flush to our edge here and just mark this other side right at the edge of your pine. And we'll do the same thing up here, and we'll cut these down at the miter box and get these installed to the back of our rack. Now, you're going to want to countersink into the pieces that are going to be stationary. We'll go ahead and get our first screw started. And we're using 2-inch T20s. Just make sure you're nice and flush out here to your very edge. And we'll take our speed square and just make sure we're nice and square. Very good. And then we'll come over here and add another screw. And now we'll just work our way right down the backer into each piece of pine. And we'll do the same thing with this backer, but at the very bottom. And we'll pop these clamps off. Toss these to the side. Off camera earlier, I took and I made a little cut on the very tops of these. Just a little taper. That way they're not so bulky. But I really like that. Damn geese. And the backer, each backer catches the back side of that 45 we made earlier, and it acts as a stopper. Boom, stops. Boom, stops. So badass. So we got everything dry fit, and before we take it back apart and sand everything down and apply the finish, I'm going to go ahead and get our sides cut and fit, and I'm going to do that with this other wonderful piece of Claro walnut. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay my coat rack down flat on my bench, and I'm just going to take and make a mark right on top of my backer piece. And I'll just verify that that is correct with this side. So we'll go ahead and rip 2 pieces out of this walnut for the 2 sides. We'll get it cut down at the miter box for the right height. Let's go ahead for now and get our 2 sides cut down. So the height for our 2 sides is going to be at 12 3/4. So let's head to the miter box. Alright, so I've got everything cut down and ready to roll. Now what I want to do is just put these 2 sides to the side and clamp this together here. Not too tight, just slightly. And I'm going to take the screws out, and we're going to take our backer over to our router table, and we're going to route in some key slots for the mounting hardware. Let's head over to the router table. So over here at the router table, we'll line up our router bit with the center of our backer. And I've made some marks on my router table fence and my piece. That way I can make sure to miss where my screws are. And we're just going to make a slot of 1 inch. Let the router stop completely, pull back, and just let it pop up. And there's our key slots. Our next step, we're just going to go ahead and slap our backer back onto our piece and glue our 2 sides on. When we go to apply our glue, we want to make sure to add some glue here and here, and then we'll apply the glue all along this edge right here. I'm going to use a dab of CA glue with some activator just to act as a temporary clamp while our wood glue dries, and we'll go ahead and clamp everything in. So, you know what time it is. We gonna add a dab of glue. Add a dab of glue. Add a dab of glue. And do the same thing on this side. Add a dab of glue. Take our clamps and just clamp everything in place. We're going to let this glue dry, and I'll meet you back here. Get this thing sanded down and slap some finish on it, and we'll have this bad boy done. So now the only thing left to do, guys, is slap some finish on this. I slapped finish on the backs already before we reassembled everything. That way I didn't have to try and spray in there. And on the sides here, I'm not too concerned about getting any shellac on them because I'm going to come back and hit them with some paste wax. That way they operate a little bit, easier. If you spray shellac on them, it's just going to get sticky and tacky, and it's going to be hard to pull them down. So we'll use some paste wax for the very sides of our walnut. But for the front, we're just going to go ahead and use a nice coat of shellac. So for our mounting hardware, we're just going to do our tape trick. Make sure your tape is lined up with your backer. Just press till you see the indentation of your key slot hole and mark out that indentation with a Sharpie. And then you take your tape off, go over to your wall, make sure you get at least one of your pieces of hardware in a stud. Bring over your tape to your wall, stick it to your wall, pre-drill where your screws will go via your marks you made. And just go ahead and slap these screws right in the center of them holes. You want your screw head to be about 1/4 inch off the wall. Remove your tape. Put your coat rack on your screws right into those key slots and just boom, slide it on over. And my friends, you have yourself a badass coat rack, double decker. That is beautiful. So there you have it, rock stars. Another badass coat rack that you can build. I absolutely love this thing. The design is easy to build. It's unique. You can customize this any way you want. Use any kind of mix of species you want. You can make it a solid wood species instead of mixing it up. I mean, the options are absolutely endless with this guy. I highly recommend building this. I'm going to mark it on Etsy at $150, and I think this thing will sell quick. As far as material cost, I put the material cost at around 18 bucks. As far as shipping, I've got the shipping calculated at $12 to $15 standard shipping anywhere in the United States. Before we go, I want to give a special shout out to a couple of my members that have sent me recent projects that they've done. First up is Mike Wagner. Now, he's an artist, and he draws the most amazing things you can think of. And he drew me up a couple of pictures of Vikings, and I absolutely love these things, Mike. Those things are badass, man. Good job, Mike. Next up is one of my faves, and this is Julia Creations. This thing is badass for all you Second Amendment lovers out there. But the design is wonderful. The font and everything just looks so damn crisp. I love this, Julia. Great job. Another one of my members, Johnny King, made these badass American flag crosses, and he gives these away to a lot of veterans, and I think this idea is original, unique, and perfect for who you're giving them to. Great job, Johnny King. You can find him at JK Woodwork Designs. And last but not least for this video, one of my members, Archie, sent me this cutting board, and this thing, the colors are a perfect contrast. Absolutely stunning. Good job, Archie. That does it for this video, rock stars. Episode 32 is wrapped up. I'm already on to episode 33, so you know what to do. Get in your shop and make some sawdust. Until next time, thanks guys.